Okay. So, medyo ayaw niya mag-play. Properties. All right. Okay. So, why study art? So, sinasabi diyan, so this is supplemental. No? Again, this PowerPoint is supplemental doon sa ating lesson na nauna na yung nasa module. So, this is supplemental PowerPoint. Why study art is to push boundaries. So, another, yeah. So the visual arts are necessary to push boundaries, encourages new ways of thinking, to celebrate or lament human condition. That is according to Sarah Cunningham of Intellect. No, um, yeah, Sarah Cunningham by Intellect. So the impact of visual art is not just demonstrable in the industries that they feed and support, but also in the classroom, communities, and cultures within which they are inextricably meshed, impossible to be removed and connected to. Yung point diyan, unahin balikan natin yung no, yung sinabi ni Sarah Cunningham na visual arts are necessary to push boundaries, encourage new ways of thinking, celebrate or lament human condition. These are the we can say na purpose nung visual arts. We push boundaries in a sense that the arts somewhat made us or triggers our mind, di ba? So, common yan kapag nakita tayo ng mga movements either against or pro towards something, and then there is probably an artwork that triggers us, no? Nowadays the memes and social media, di ba, when we want to make fun of something that is we believe parang ang bobo-bobo, somebody will do an artwork with that and somewhat push boundaries. Ibig sabihin, um, we are the artist trying to uh, get more audience in thinking that we deserve something more, something different from this, 'di ba? In social media, marami yan. Halimbawa, in the way the government is acting about COVID-19 or about the pandemic. Although some people are the concept or sabihin natin the sides are really divided. The nation is very divided towards the reaction no, nila doon sa ginagawa ng gobyerno about COVID-19. We can say that there is an artwork no na nagsasabi ng ganito, nagsasabi naman ng ganyan. Again, the idea is to push boundaries. Triggering the mind of people of to think no of what they really need or what they really deserves. So yun yung reason. So that's why we have art, encourage new ways of thinking, bagong pamamaraan, somewhat sending us a message that there is some alternatives, there are some other things we can do, no? Sa mga artwork niyan sa ibang even the artworks in the other countries, 'di ba? Um they are suggesting new ways or new alternatives, new concepts para sa isang bagay. And of course, when we are celebrating or lamenting about human condition, we create art. 'Di ba? Meron tayong in terms of music, for example, na lang no. Music. We have music for everything. For work, we have music for love, we have music for lamentation, no? Yung pangungulila, pagkawala, marami tayong musika. That's also the same with artwork. Depende yun sa artist, 'di ba? Sa tao, kung ano yung kung saan siya magaling. For example, if you are an artist na sa painting, syempre, whatever condition you have, somewhat you wanted to transfer it into uh, an artwork. So it's either painting or whatsoever. All right. So let's move on to the next part. Yeah. So Yeah, the impact of the visual art is not just demonstrable in the industries that they feed and support, but also in the classrooms. So, communities and cultures within which they are inextricably meshed, impossible to be removed and connected into. So, hindi lang siya sa industriya. Pag sinabing hindi lang siya industriya, hindi lamang siya sa mga art galleries, but even in the classroom, no, communities, yan, may yung art ay nagti-trigger trying to change our minds, trying to influence other people. Diba pag may classmate ka, um, you have a painting and then you showed it to somebody, somewhat meron kang concept na gustong mangyari, meron kang bagay na gustong magawa or pangyayari o kaya kilos na gustong magawa ng iyong kausap. That's why you show them an artwork. Diba? Pala, drawing ka. So ngayon, pinakita mo sa klase mo, ang concept diyan is anong reason ba't mo pinakita, 'di ba? You wanted an action from that person. So, matutuwa ba siya o hindi? Kikiligin ba siya? O ano ba, gusto mo ng comment about dun sa gawa mo? Somewhat those are hindi siya maaalis doon sa isang lipunan. Basta may dalawang tao o higit pa making a community, hindi maaalis yung sining sapagkat the way we talk, the way we do something, we can call that as an artwork. No? Pag ito naman ay naperperceive ng mata, we call that a visual art. So Karl Marx sees these creations art as the cry of the oppressed creature, a necessary reflection of and reaction to an out of joint world. So sinasabi lang niya na cry of the oppressed creature, na sabihin natin na um, uh, yung oppression, yung pangyayari na dulot ng mundo doon sa tao na yon causes him to have time para gawin yung isang sining. For example, a painting, no? May pangyayari, no? May pangyayari na nag-trigger kaya yung isang tao nagbigay ng oras para gumawa ng sining, gumawa ng isang artwork, and that artwork has an objective. Meron siyang mission, no? Na gustong maibigay doon sa mga sa iba pang tao na makakita ng artwork. So kaya siya tinawag na cry of the oppressed creature. Yan. And sabi nga, yung oppression yung nag-push doon sa isang tao to do that, kasi hindi biro gumawa ng isang sining, especially if para ito sa iba pa, 'di ba? Yung gumawa ka ng kanta, mag-paint ka ng isang malaking painting, kung anong mga sining pa, 'di ba? So there's something na nag-trigger sa iyo, ba't mo ginawa 'yon? So according kay Karl Marx 'yan, merong pangyayari na nag-move sa iyo. Another is for Friedrich Nietzsche. Artists are still creatures of oppressions, but this time oppressed by the unbearable brutality of our world. Art is our frantic attempt to bury our heads or forget. So naranasan niyo na ba yung sabi nga natin yan sa MIL, when we study MIL, meron tawag diyan teka lang, sorry. Sabihin na natin na mali yun, erase yun. So, halimbawa, the art is a frantic attempt to bury our heads and forget. Sabihin natin, sometimes people are using artwork as a defense mechanism para makaalis doon sa bagay o pangyayari na hindi niya na mababago. Halimbawa, when somebody died, 'di ba? Some people, no, na yung mga namatayan are making songs just to relive yung moment ng taong namatay, 'di ba? Some artists are commissioning, yung ibang tao nagpapa-commission ng kanilang painting para ng kanilang namatay na hayop para mabuhay ulit. Yung ganun yung concept natin, frantic attempt to bury our heads and forget, or sometimes para matanggap yung pangyayari. Ganun yung concept ng according kay Friedrich Nietzsche. So, but Guillaume Apollinaire believed that the artists are people who can recognize the symbols, without which humanity's divine view of the universe collapses with dizzying speed, in which, for him, art acts as a kind of visionary weaving as recognizing and representing moments that help us comprehend our mysteries. So, ito kay Guillaume Apollinaire, yung kino-concept, yung sinasabi ni William ni Apollinaire is art made us creates a representation, no, of the uh, uncomprehendable mysteries, no, or somewhat help us to comprehend mysteries. For example, yung konsepto natin ng mga diwata, yung konsepto natin ng mga aswang, yung konsepto natin ng mga hiwaga, 'di ba? Pag sinabi natin yung concept ni Maria Makiling, 'di ba? Yung idea ni Maria Makiling. Sige, try to imagine Maria Makiling. Yung concept, yung nai-imagine mo ngayon na image ni Maria Makiling is um created yan ng isang artist. Pero hindi talaga siya nakita, no? Hindi yun yung itsura niya. Yung may halaman, may bulaklak na sombrero, 'di ba? May dahon na sombrero na nasa ulo, 'di ba? Nakaputi, 'di ba? Paano mo masabi na si Maria Makiling talaga 'yon? It is just a representation, no? Kasi hindi natin ma-comprehend yung misteryo, 'di ba? Totoo ba talaga yung ganung konsepto? So some artists created that visual para ma-visualize natin yung mga bagay na nahihiwagaan tayo. Katulad ng white lady, yung white lady na yan, 'di ba? Talaga bang ganoon ang itsura ng white lady? Yun yung concept natin. But the artists are trying to create these images para magkaroon tayo ng visual ng ating mysteries. So, ng mga bagay na nahihiwagaan tayo, 'di ba? Do you still remember the concept of yung mayon, yung magayon, saka yung love story nila magayon, 'di ba? Yung sabi nila may ganito, may babae, may lalaki, 'di ba? Based from the usok. That's why yung kanilang images ay nakaputi kasi yung smoke ay medyo gray, 'di ba? So somewhat the artists are doing those things para magkaroon tayo ng visual sa mga hiwaga na hindi natin nakikita. So diyan papasok yung konsepto ng religion, no? No, religion and art become separated as in our society, with the former being the proper concern of the theologians and philosophers. He thinks that art loses its social power and significance. So diyan papasok yung religion and art, 'di ba? Na there are some mysteries, there are not everything ay kaya makita ng mga mata natin. So some artists created images, no? Yung 'di ba? Sila Vishnu, look at the religion in other countries, 'di ba? Sila Vishnu, sila Brahma, 'di ba? Yung mga Diyos na nasa ibang bansa, yung mga Diyos ng ibang bansa. Excuse me. Oh, 'di ba sila talaga bang gano'n itsura nila? Talaga bang gano'n itsura ng Diyos nila? Or it's just symbolisms, 'di ba? Mga simbolo, 'di ba, na para magkaroon ng konsepto, magkaroon ng larawan yung Diyos na nasa isipan ng bawat sa atin. So, ganyan yung concept. Although same din 'yan sa parang ang tawag dito, yung mga prophet, mga ayun nga, yung itsura ng Panginoon, 'di ba? Nagkaroon din tayo ng larawan na 'yan para ma-visualize natin yung nasa konsepto natin, yung nasa isipan natin. So that's why proper concern yan ng theologians, because in religion is a theology, you know? Lahat yan konsepto lamang pero walang mukha. But the artist trying to give equivalence doon sa mga theories na yun, doon sa mga konsepto na yun. So that's why doon naglalaro yung relihiyon saka yung sining. 'Di ba? Sabi nga natin, the Holy Spirit, the concept of Holy Spirit, paano natin ma-visualize yung Holy Spirit, 'di ba? So some people use a symbolism like the dove, 'di ba? The white dove, 'di ba? Or sabi natin the holiness. Yung concept ng holiness, paano natin yun visualize? So the array of light, 'di ba? Ganun yung ginagawa. Ganun yung trabaho ng sining, bigyan ng larawan yung mga bagay na hindi maisalarawan. Yun yung isang purpose. Yeah, so the signed toilet bowl by Marcel Duchamp. Yeah, so Marcel Duchamp placed an off-the-shelf toilet bowl. So, and he claimed that art is the action of an artist. So if you observe properly yung artwork, yung visual art ni Marcel Duchamp, it is a toilet bowl, no? But this toilet bowl has something written, no? Doon, it is a signature of R. Mott 1917, no? Ano yung gustong ipunto diyan ni Duchamp? That art is the action of artist. So dito papasok yung sinasabi natin na parang pangyayari nung artwork ni yung artwork ni Richard Gomez, 'di ba? Ang pangit, well, sa akin, sa paningin ko, 'di ba? Paningin niyo rin naman siguro, pangit, parang wala namang sense, hugis titi lang, 'di ba? Pero art na, no? So, bakit ganon? So, French artist Marcel Duchamp placed an off-the-shelf toilet bowl signed with the fictitious artist's name in the gallery. He made the notion of art as the action of artists, proving, ano yung pinoprove niya? Proving the idea of the post-Renaissance European elevation of artists from anonymous craftsmen into celebrities. So, ito yung konsepto, yung sinasabi, yung gustong i-prove ni Duchamp na an artist nung during the Renaissance period are considered to be celebrities, and whatever na gawin nila, because they are artists, we call that as an art. So yun yung gusto niyang sabihin. That's why a fictitious signature was written or placed doon sa artwork. Yun yung gusto niyang sabihin. If a person is an artist and therefore somehow different, ano ba sa tayo? If a person is an artist and therefore somehow different and special, then whatever they do is necessarily an art. This notion led inevitably to the galleries filled not just with brilliance and wonder, but with the mundane and pointless created by people overly concerned with image, position, and fashion. In short, people deeply afraid of not getting it. Okay? Even when there is nothing to get. So, ito yung sabi natin na nababawasan yung meaning ng isang artwork. Kasi kaya na pinag-uusapan natin na yung art should have a meaning. Art is reflection, 'di ba? Sasabi natin 'yan, cry of the oppressed. But now, the question is, ano yung art, 'di ba? So ngayon, dito pinapatunayan ni Duchamp na minsan hindi lahat ng art ay art. Hindi lahat ng art ay may meaning. Dahil lang yun sa gawa ito ng isang artist, although wala naman talaga siyang, minsan hindi naman lahat ng bagay ay may ibig sabihin, pinipilit nating mag-extract ng meaning dun sa bagay kasi nga gawa ito ng isang artist. So somewhat hindi ganun yung hindi lahat ng cases ganun, no? So that by sophisticating art to the point of incomprehension, hindi mo na tuloy maintindihan kasi pinipilit mo intindihin yung bagay na na hindi naman, wala namang ibig sabihin, wala namang gustong ipaintindi, 'di ba? Halimbawa, so yung naalala niyo yung mga meme, 'di ba, na according to Shakespeare, it is a blue curtain or red curtain. So what does the red curtain means? 'Di ba? Samantalang wala lang, red kasi yung curtain, 'di ba? Yun yung point dito na art is the action of an artist. And so therefore, if the art is an action of an artist, not all art has really a meaning, but rather, or has a very sophisticated meaning. Maaring shallow lang yung meaning, try lang nating maging super appreciating, na we try to go beyond dun sa meaning ng isang artwork kahit hindi naman talaga yun yung meaning ng artwork, no? Okay. So the tabloids become many people, the arbiters and labelers. Art essentially had eaten itself. Nakakatakot yun kasi yung sining, kinain na mismo yung sarili niya. Yung sining, hindi na alam yung ibig sabihin ng sining. Bakit? Kasi because of the tabloids or the people or the arbiters and the labelers, no, 'di ba? Ano yung sinasabi diyan? Ang tinutukoy diyan. For example, merong isang kaharian and then there is an artist, nagandahan yung hari, no? Nagandahan yung hari dun sa artwork ng artist, they consider that as an art. And the artist, so ngayon, kahit hindi na maganda yung gawa ng isang artist, kahit wala namang ibig sabihin, wala namang point yung isang art ng isang artist, dahil that artist is being labeled by a labeler, a king, no? O kaya a tabloid, 'di ba? Nagkakaroon na siya ng isang meaning. Halimbawa, is yung sa atin sa television, 'di ba? Sino yung arbiters and labelers? 'Di ba? Ito yung mga writers, mga tabloid writers, the directors, no? And then sila yung nagbibigay dun sa isang tao, sa isang artista, sabihin natin, o isang individual ng label na ito artista to. Therefore, lahat ng gawa nito maganda, 'di ba? Ganun yung concept yan eh. Nagkaroon din tayo ng konsepto na kapag lahat, alam ba, gawa ni si nagkaroon yung FAMAS. Ayan, they are the labelers, FAMAS, the Oscars, mga award-giving bodies. 'Di ba? Sila nagsisilbi silang labelers. So dahil nanalo halimbawa yung isang artist, halimbawa isang director, no? And we considered him or her as an artist, nanalo siya ng patimpalak. Lahat ng gawa niya, ng mga susunod na gawa niya, inaabangan na rin natin kasi alam mo yun, nagkaroon siya ng label na maganda siya gumawa, therefore lahat ng gagawin niya is maganda rin. Pero hindi talaga yun nangyayari all the time. Yun yung niya, gusto nating i-point out dito. Okay, moving on. So people use art in all kinds of way. Yun lang yung pwede natin sabihin to hinder or help revolution, 'di ba? Naalala niyo yung mga sining ng panahon ng martial law, before martial law, after martial law, 'di ba? Historic events. There is art in every historic events. To incite or resist social prejudice, no? Gusto nating tanggapin o kaya ay tanggihan yung isang prejudice, yung social prejudice, for example, sa mga issues, social issues, 'di ba? Hindi naman lahat 'yan tinatanggap natin eh. And yung concept natin ng hindi pagtanggap, sometimes ginagawa natin siya into art para kumalat, para tumawag pa ng ibang atensyon, no? Para tanggihan yung bagay na 'yon. To highlight or condone an injustice, yeah. Alam niyo na yan, yung kumbaga may pangyayaring hindi makatarungan, hindi ka agree doon, so you make art for that. To conceal or unmask social anxieties or simply to get an aesthetic high. Pag sinabing aesthetic high, wala lang, gusto mo lang pagalawin yung iyong kamay and then do an artwork. Diba? So, kaya mayroon tayong konsepto ng abstract, kaya nga abstract eh. Kasi ganun yun eh, just aesthetic high. As a viewer, you decipher the way that art makes you feel. You trace those feelings and the evocations they offer. Art can provoke, inspire, or disturb. It can open your eyes to worlds rather other than your own. Or it can keep you alive even in the face of death. So yung sinasabi dyan, as a viewer, ayan, ganun tayo. Sabi nga natin, as a passive viewer, or an active, as an active viewer, whatever we see, we are trying to connect ourselves doon sa nakikita natin, no? You trace those feelings. Anong nararamdaman ko nung nakita ko yon, 'di ba? And we are enjoying what they have offered. Ano ba, nanood ka ng pelikula? Pelikula is a visual art, no? Yung nararamdaman mo, tinitrace mo yon. Nag-enjoy ba ako? Natuwa ba ako? 'Di ba? Because sometimes hindi man natin siya sinasadya or sometimes hindi naman required. We really need to make judgment. And yung judgment na yon is based on the trace of feelings we felt while we are experiencing an artwork. So, art can provoke, art can inspire, and also disturb, 'di ba? Kahit ano mang uri ng sining 'yan, may konsepto. Meron niyang gustong may vision or mission or whatever. Sabi nga, kung may mission, may vision. Yun yung sinasabi diyan. It can open your eyes to worlds other than your own. Sabi nga, way back nung early days of film. Yung early days of film, 'di ba? Alam mo, black and white, 'di ba? Somewhat those films na ginawa dati o kaya mga historic era, mga historic films, 'di ba? They are showing us different from sa nakikita natin. O kaya pag nanonood ka ng mga foreign films, 'di ba? Foreign films like mga pelikula sa Japan, France, no, European or American films, somewhat it opens your eyes to the other worlds, other locations na nandun sa iyo. So somewhat you are enjoying it, you are having a good time with these artworks and keep you alive even in the face of death. Meron kayong picture ng iyong minamahal sa buhay na nawala na, ng yung alagang asong paborito. So ano yung ginagawa diyan? Itong larawan na ito is trying or keeping a person na namatay na parang nandyan lang siya. Ganun yung concept natin. Satisfy yung ating lamentation para mawala o maibsan yung ating kalungkutan. Yun yung ano natin dyan. Okay. Another. Kundi, nakakailang oras na tayo. Oh my God, it's 46. No, sana hindi ganun to kalaki. How to become an artist? One should possess a passionate desire to create something that looks good and feels right. Though this is very subjective, sabi nga, hindi naman lahat yung ginawa mo looks good dun sa kanila. Hindi naman lahat ng bagay feels right. Kasi nga, the right and good somewhat are very subjective. Depende yan sa ating kultura o sa kinalakihang kultura ng tao. No? Yung etnisidad, yung socio-economic status, nagbabago-bago yan. But something that has particular significance, so kailangan mo muna ng passionate desire to create something. Yun yung unang gusto niyang sabihin. Create. Kasi kung wala kang create, walang art, 'di ba? Kung wala kang ginawa. In such activities, intuition, expression, skill, and consideration of aesthetic form, all attributes of artistic activity are considered important. What everyone needs is the opportunity to create, and when the occasion calls for it, to create something of aesthetic significance that is something that has meaning for the person who created it. So, ano yung sinasabi diyan na what everyone needs is opportunity to create. Meron meron kasi tayong sabi nga there should be something to trigger us to create, and it could be the opportunity to create, 'di ba? Gumagawa, sabi natin, you always practice your art, your craft. You practice your craft para when the opportunity comes, magamit mo 'yon, no? Kaya kayo nag-aaral ng isang kurso kasi you are sabi nga you are preparing for the opportunity to create or to use your craft, your art, and in a something aesthetic significance. Ibig sabihin, yung ginagawa mo, nagpo-practice ka para pag dumating yung pagkakataon na kailangan, maganda yung ginagawa mo, maganda yung gagawin mo, no? Hindi siya first time, gawang first time, whatever. Ganun yung gusto lang mangyari. What everyone needs is opportunity. You practice art kasi may purpose yun. Darating yung araw na kailangan mong gamitin yun. At pag ginamit mo yun, for sure, maganda yung kakalabasan kasi you always practice doing that. Okay? Another. Okay, so visual arts, some fundamental issues. So, as a non-verbal source of information, the visual arts, distinct from the verbal and literary arts, carry their potential mainly through perceptual means without resort to dictionaries and formalized grammar, but the viewer and the artist as creator are engaged in making sense of visual images, of things observed that do not carry clearly defined ways of interpretation. So, very different yung non-verbal source of information like visual arts because hindi siya standard, hindi siya subjective siya, no? Nagbabago-bago. Lahat nagbabago-bago yung perception natin o yung pagkakaintindi natin. So somewhat the artist as creator, no? Kailangan yung kanyang ginagawang sining ay nagmi-make sense doon sa magbabasa, makakita ng artwork. Kasi kung halimbawa hindi niya yun iisipin, paano to mag-make sense sa mga makakita ko, hindi yun maiintindihan, hindi niya maibibigay o hindi niya maipaparating yung gusto niyang information, o hindi rin ma-define clearly yung interpretation na gusto niya doon sa kanyang artwork, 'di ba? So dito masabi natin na hindi lahat ng artwork ay para sa lahat. No, mayroon lang talagang bagay na mayroon lang talagang mga individual na nakakaintindi sa isang sining, depende sa pagkakaintindi nila. No, kasi halimbawa artwork that is for um sabihin natin na artwork against LGBT. So, somewhat, yung mga ganong klaseng artwork, iba-iba yung level ng pagkakaintindi ng mga tao. Bakit? Kasi, iba-iba yung engagement nila o yung connection nila sa members of the LGBT. 'Di ba? So, nagiging subjective yung bagay-bagay kasi hindi lahat ng sining ay para sa lahat. No, meron lang siyang pinapatungkulan. And the artist as creator need to think of that ahead, no, while creating the artwork, how it will make sense doon sa makakita nito or para kanino to and paano nila maintindihan ito. Naintindihan? Yeah. So whereas the artist as creator has the mental and physical task to arranging the parts that make up a whole, which becomes an offering to prospective viewers. The viewers has the task of perceiving the relationship between the parts that make up the whole. Ayan. Lapit na tayo matapos. As a presentation, as an offering of the visual sense, art can be seen to possess possibility of carrying information in 3 different levels. So, dito natin pag-uusapan, ito yung sabi nga, reading visual arts. Ano yung binabasa natin dun sa artwork? Number 1 is the aesthetic, the form there before the eye. Ito nakikita natin. Yan. We are trying to understand yung kabuuan nung nakikita natin. And of course, number 2, letter B, is the icons, no? Yung mga bagay-bagay na nagbubuo ng isang artwork somewhat help us to understand the artwork, no? Bakit may ganyan buhok, for example, sa isang artwork, no? Ba't ganyan yung buhok niya, ba't ganyan yung kulay, ba't ganyan yung hugis, mga ganung bagay, di ba? Halimbawa, yung tubig kapag ito ay kulay asul, di ba? You consider yung imahe ng tubig. Kapag ito ay kulay asul, you consider that as tubig. Kapag ito ay pula, pwede mo sabihing dugo. 'Di ba? Kapag sinabi mong green, iba naman yung meaning. Pag sinabi mo yung iba pang kulay, nag-iiba yung pagkakaintindi natin because those are icons, no? The ability to stand as a metaphor and thereby to migrate into a verbal register. No? So, yung mga may icon, may mga bahagi yung artwork na nagbibigay sa atin ng ibig sabihin. As representation, bringing to mind, ayan, by virtue of likeness, a mental picture of place, things, or person. Siyempre, yung pangatlo, as representation. Saan ko to nakita? Saan ko to nakita? Or, ito pala yung ibig sabihin nito. Halimbawa, pagka, yung konsepto natin nga ng, kapre, no? Halimbawa, art about kapre. Yan, sabihin natin na ganun. Bringing to mind the virtue of likeness. Ano yung katulad nito? No, mental picture of place, things, and or person. 'Di ba? Halimbawa, yung mga icon na yan, representation, halimbawa yung bigote ni Hitler. Somewhat it is an icon and also a representation. Bakit? Kasi yung iconic yung bigote ni Hitler, na kapag nakita mo ito sa ibang tao, 'di ba? Virtue of likeness, no? Of things and person, 'di ba? Parang sinasabi mo na itong tao na to ay maka-Hitler, 'di ba? Ganun yung concept natin. So it's a representation. This uniqueness which is not given to the verbal can be understood as an essential contribution to the place of art, not only as a material manifestation but also a challenge to the viewer's powers of perception and conception. So halimbawa, tayo as a Christian country, 'di ba? We are familiar with cross, we are familiar with thrones, the clouds, the rays of light, 'di ba? Pero kapag ginamit 'yon, pag nakakita tayo ng mga halimbawa, mga representation ng mga gods and goddesses ng iba pang mga lugar, 'di ba? It's somewhat different. Kasi iba yung nire-represent niya pag sinabi na iba yung nire-represent niya. Hindi siya like walang virtue of likeness sa meron tayo rito. So, therefore, ano yung mangyayari? Magkakaroon tayo ng ibang definition, magkakaroon tayo ng ibang meaning doon sa isang artwork. Seen in the light, art matters because it can call into a play a wider scope of representation and interpretation that which is given by the verbal. So, hindi yan nabibigay ng verbal. Iba yung lawak ng pwede nating makuha, scope of representation, scope of understanding, scope of interpretation ng visual compared sa verbal. Mas malawak, although ang in return, no, bilang kapalit, medyo can cause vagueness nung understanding nung real interpretation kasi masyado nang malawak, hindi mo na alam kung alin doon. So the point here is that art is a form of visual representation, can be more individualistic, less constrained by rules and regulation than the verbal, and thus more allied to man's natural state as gatherer of sensory information, according to Jameson. Okay? So, thanks everyone. If you have any question, di ko na bago yan. If you have any question, you can use our chat box if you have clarifications, no? But ang kailangan ko lang requirement is yung una nating pinagawa doon sa module. This PowerPoint will be also given to you para sa reference nyo. And if you have questions, just chat or text or chat doon sa messenger natin. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and God bless you all.